light sleep. If you've ever jolted awake right as you were falling asleep, that sudden full-body jerk that snaps you back, that's called a hypnic jerk. It happens at the exact moment your brain starts letting go of wakefulness. You've just entered the first stage of sleep, and even though it feels like nothing is happening, the stage that follows, called N2, is where you spend almost half your entire night. Most people think this isn't real sleep. That's wrong. During N2, your brain creates bursts of activity called sleep spindles. These block out noise from around you and, more importantly, help lock in skills you've been learning. Your body is quietly storing information while you think you're just resting. But light sleep is only the beginning. What happens next is where things get strange. Deep sleep. If someone can shake you and you still won't wake up, or if you sometimes open your eyes completely confused about where you are, you've been in deep sleep, also called N3. In this stage, your brain slows way down into long rolling waves, and something happens here that almost nobody talks about. Your brain cleans itself. There's a system in your body called the glymphatic system, and it works like a drain. It removes waste that builds up in your brain during the day, including a protein linked to Alzheimer's disease. This system only turns on properly during deep sleep. Missing this stage isn't just about feeling tired, it's about letting that waste pile up. Your body also releases most of its growth hormone here, repairing muscles, healing tissue, rebuilding from the inside. Deep sleep takes care of your body, but the next stage takes care of something even more personal, your feelings. REM Sleep. REM sleep is where your most vivid dreams happen. If your dreams feel like movies, full of emotion, sometimes scary, sometimes completely bizarre, your brain is doing exactly what it should. A scientist named Matthew Walker describes REM sleep as overnight emotional therapy. Here's what that means in plain terms. Your brain replays difficult memories during REM, but takes the sharp edge off them. The memory stays. The pain gets quieter. That's why something that felt unbearable on Monday can feel easier to carry by Wednesday morning. And here's something most people find hard to believe. Your brain is actually more active during REM than when you're wide awake. The only reason you're not physically acting out your dreams is that your body gets temporarily frozen by your brainstem. REM is also where your brain makes unexpected connections, which is why your best ideas often show up in the morning instead of after hours of hard thinking. REM gets a lot of attention, but not everyone moves through these stages the same way. Chronotype. If someone has called you lazy your whole life for not being a morning person, science disagrees with them. Your sleep timing isn't a choice. It's built into your biology. Researchers have found a specific gene called PER3 that shapes whether your body naturally wants to sleep early or late. People who are wired to stay up later, night owls, actually show stronger creative thinking and mental flexibility in the evening hours. The problem is that most of the world runs on a schedule built for early risers. What looks like laziness is actually a biological difference that, in older human history, probably had a real purpose. Someone needed to stay alert while the rest of the group slept. If you've been fighting your natural schedule your whole life and always losing, the research says you're not failing at discipline. You're just working against your own wiring, but your sleep timing is mostly fixed. What isn't fixed is how much sleep you're missing, and that's something most people get completely wrong. Sleep debt. If you sleep 10 hours on Saturday and Sunday and still feel behind by Monday, you felt sleep debt. Research from the University of Pennsylvania found that the damage from not sleeping enough builds up quietly over time. But here's the scary part. The more sleep-deprived you are, the less able you are to notice it. People who run on 5 or 6 hours for years will tell you they feel fine, but when tested, their reaction time and decision-making look similar to someone who is legally drunk. The debt doesn't go away just because you stop feeling it. And this leads to something interesting, because some people really do seem to need less sleep, and for a few of them, there's a scientific reason. The short sleeper gene. If you've felt completely rested on 4 or 5 hours your whole life, not just surviving but actually sharp and energetic, you might carry a rare gene. Researchers at UCSF found a gene called DEC2 in people who are true short sleepers. These people make up less than 3% of the population. They don't just sleep less. Their deep sleep is more efficient, so they get more out of every hour. The important thing to understand is that most people who say they're fine on little sleep are not in this group. They've just slowly gotten used to feeling bad and forgotten what good feels like. Both Napoleon and Margaret Thatcher claimed to sleep 4 hours a night, but history suggests both showed signs of long-term sleep loss. Your genes set the floor for how much sleep you need, but stress can blow the ceiling off entirely. Stress sleep. When your brain won't switch off, if your mind switches on the moment your head hits the pillow, going over the day, planning tomorrow, replaying conversations, you're dealing with what researchers call hyperarousal insomnia. Your body has a chemical called adenosine that builds up while you're awake and pushes you towards sleep, but when your stress levels stay high, your body keeps producing cortisol, which blocks adenosine from doing its job. The harder you try to fall asleep, the worse it gets, because trying activates the same system that keeps you awake. Effort is the enemy here. What actually works, according to research, is something called CBTI, Cognitive Behavioral Therapy for Insomnia. It consistently beats sleeping pills in long-term studies. The solution isn't a pill. It's changing the thoughts and habits that keep your brain on high alert at bedtime. Stress attacks sleep from the outside, but some problems come from inside the night itself, fragmented sleep. If you sleep 8 hours but wake up feeling like you got nothing, the problem might be fragmentation. This is when your sleep gets interrupted by small, brief wake-ups, sometimes so short you don't even remember them, but they break up your sleep cycles enough that your brain never reaches the deeper, more restorative stages. One of the most common causes is alcohol. A drink before bed does help you fall asleep faster, but in the second half of the night, when your longest and most important REM cycles happen, alcohol breaks everything up. The person who has a glass of wine to relax and then wakes up at 3 a.m. staring at the ceiling is experiencing exactly this. You can't see it happening, but your sleep quality is being quietly destroyed. Fragmentation happens to you. But the next type of sleep, your brain builds it on purpose: lucid dreaming. If you've ever realized mid-dream that you were dreaming, not just a vague feeling, but a clear moment where you knew, that's called lucid dreaming. Research from Stanford scientist Stephen LaBerge shows that during these dreams, the part of your brain responsible for self-awareness partially switches back on inside REM sleep. You become aware of the dream without leaving it. This can be trained. Athletes have used it to mentally rehearse physical skills, and brain scans show their motor regions light up as if they're actually moving. Carl Jung talked about something similar in waking life, consciously exploring your own unconscious mind. Lucid dreaming may be the sleeping version of that. People who can do this regularly also tend to show stronger self-awareness while awake. The skill seems to carry over. It's rare, but it's learnable. But the next sleep state needs no training at all, and it visits almost everyone. The threshold state, hypnagogia. It happens right at the edge between being awake and falling asleep, a zone called hypnagogia. If you've ever clearly heard your name called as you drifted off, seen shapes or flashes of faces, or felt a sudden image appear out of nowhere before sleep, you were in it. Brain scans show this state produces 2 types of brain waves at the same time, a combination that almost never shows up during normal waking hours. Thomas Edison used to nap in a chair while holding metal balls. When he fell asleep, the balls would drop, the noise would wake him, and he'd immediately write down whatever had been in his mind at that moment. Salvador Dali and Nikola Tesla used the same trick. They weren't being strange. They were deliberately tapping into a state where the brain runs freely, without the usual filters of conscious thinking. Most people pass through this zone every night and never use it. Some sleep experiences aren't useful though. Some of the most frightening things a person can go through. Sleep paralysis. If you've ever woken up unable to move a single muscle, heart pounding, completely sure that something was in the room with you, that's sleep paralysis. During REM sleep, your brain switches off your muscles so you don't act out your dreams. Normally that switch turns back off when you wake up. During sleep paralysis, it doesn't. Your mind is awake. Your body is still locked. The feeling of a presence, a shadow, and something pressing on your chest. These come from your brain, still partly generating dream images while your eyes are open. Every culture in history has given this experience a name. In Islamic tradition, it's often described as a jinn. In Europe, the night hag. In Japan, kanashibari, bound in metal. Different names, same neurology. Research shows that if you can recognize what's happening while it's happening, if you can label it as sleep paralysis in that moment, the episode ends faster. Knowing what it is removes most of the fear. The science of napping. Here's what's really going on when you feel guilty about taking a nap. You're fighting your own biology. The energy dip you feel between 1 and 3 in the afternoon has nothing to do with lunch. It's a natural low point in your body's daily rhythm, and it happens whether you eat or not. A NASA study on pilots found that a 26-minute nap made them 34% better at their job and doubled their alertness. The length matters. A 20-minute nap keeps you in light sleep and leaves you feeling sharp. A 90-minute nap completes a full cycle and gives you deeper recovery. In Japan, falling asleep in public is called inamuri, and it's seen as proof that you work hard enough to be exhausted. It's respected, not mocked. The guilt around napping is almost entirely cultural, and the cultures that don't feel that guilt consistently have better heart health. A short nap might be the simplest, cheapest thing most people could do for themselves and never do. Sleep architecture, the full picture. Now here's what ties all of it together. Your sleep doesn't just happen in one long block. It moves through cycles of roughly 90 minutes, going back and forth between lighter sleep and REM. But the cycles shift across the night. The first half is mostly deep sleep. The second half is mostly REM. That means if your alarm cuts your sleep short, you're not losing a little of everything evenly. You're cutting off the REM heavy end, which is where your emotional recovery and memory processing happen most. It also means that how you feel when you wake up has less to do with how many hours you slept, and more to do with which stage you were in at the moment you woke up. Waking up naturally at the end of a full cycle can feel better than being dragged out of deep sleep after a full 8 hours. The biggest sleep variable most people never think about isn't how long they sleep. It's whether they're waking up at the right moment. The question isn't just how much you sleep, it's how well you move through the night.